This is the Indigenous Environmental Network. For more information, go to ienearth.org.
Okay, thank you so much for coming to Indigenous Feminisms. My name is Simone. I work at the Indigenous Environmental Network. I'm the Director of Operations, but I also work in coordination with my sister here on Indigenous Feminisms and the relationship between environmental justice, our bodies, colonization, patriarchy, capitalism, and all the other isms. So we're so happy that you can join us as we have this discussion with our two speakers here, and we're going to talk about what feminism means for us as Indigenous women. Maybe we use different terms, and our relationship to Mother Earth as Indigenous women, as Two-Spirit, and what that means for us as original people of the Americas. So I'm sorry, I also... Buju chinoda ni kwe Indigenikas, misquagami wizaga igining and don jabab, migizi and dudame. My name is like Big Storm Woman. I'm from the Red Lake Nation in northern Minnesota, and I'm Eagle Clan. And I'm going to turn it over to Claire to introduce, and then we'll get going.
Hessa Halt Pesia, Claire Louise Quest, Chenes Lemti, good afternoon. I am Claire. I'm Bitterroot Salish, and I am happy and honored to be here with all of you. I am really, to have our guest speakers here are really amazing. I have been an Indigenous feminist for 30 years before I even knew that was a thing. And so I'm really grateful that we can have this discussion. Thank you.
So we're going to just have we're going to hear from both of our speakers, and then we want to have discussion. And even after this particular workshop is over, this space here, if there's not a workshop in here, is like a woman tent. And so if you want to come in here and have conversations, we'll be trying to foster those so that we can learn together. And then the other thing is we're looking to do some interviews with Indigenous women land defenders, women who work in their community. And so if that's okay with you, let me know, because then we'll come find you later. You want to put the couple of chairs there? And we're so pleased to have our sisters from Brazil and Colombia here, because we know that the things that we experience here in North America is not unique to just us, that we share those experiences with our sisters to the south. So before I have our esteemed speakers introduce themselves, I wonder... Okay, I'm just going to take a poll. We have the cooler on, but I don't know if it's working. Do people want us to try to open the... Norm, would you take the lead on that with any other people who want to help? Okay, so before we introduce our esteemed speakers, I just wanted to quickly read, or slowly read, because we believe in language justice. So as you're talking and listening, make sure that you're aware that interpretation is going on. And so we'll slow ourselves down a little. So Jeannie Shenandoah, one of our speakers, wrote an introduction to this book called Sisters in Spirit. And we can pass it around so that you can look at it. And I'm just going to read a quick, short piece of the introduction to kind of get our minds thinking about this topic. And then I'll ask them to introduce themselves and talk a little bit more. So we Haudenosaunee live within the traditional structure that we've always had, the structure of equality among all members of our community. Women, men, and children have equal spiritual, human, and political rights. We have equal opportunity, to voice opinions or objections to any situation within our community. Yeah, we have equal opportunity to voice opinions or objections to any situation within our community. And we know that our voice will be heard. Do you want to read this one just to hear? Like this, not that one, just this one.
And so, when we met these white women so long ago, I am sure that our women were probably shocked at the lack of human equality that these other women had to live under. And we, seeing them as equal, all women as equal, couldn't understand how not only women, but women and children were living under this totally oppressive situation. How people had to had fled their homelands for exactly the same reason could appear here on Turtle Island, our Mother Earth, and bring with them the exact same oppressive behaviors that they had experienced. For the men to walk, set foot on this land and say, "This is mine, I want this, I'm taking this," is an example of how they are thinking. And I would like to have our elder and clan mother Jeannie introduce herself now.
Me?
Yes.
Introduce myself? O kun tēnā ne wāua ke seta te huak tai kia kai hāt ta unkasta. Hello, my name is Jeannie Shenandoah. I'm a member of the Eel Clan family of Onondaga Nation of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. I belong to a very large extended clan family, matrilineal clan family that we are born into. Your mother must have a clan for you to have a clan, and that's our identity. We have specific clan families. Are we supposed to just introduce ourselves now, or? Okay. This is kind of on the fly. I didn't plan.
Yeah, that's okay. We're just having a discussion.
Huh?
We're just talking.
Okay. So, a lot of people have heard of the Haudenosaunee people, or the Six Nations Confederacy. I'm very happy to say that myself and my friends here that are my relatives with me are born into a community and a society that still maintains the traditional matrilineal lineage that our people have always had. And we're fortunate that it has not been interrupted. That is our identity, whatever our mother's identity is, our mother's clan, regardless of whatever the father is. So our perspective on feminism is quite a bit different than the world surrounding us. Actually, I don't know where to start, but it wasn't anything unusual to me when I start hearing about this word of feminism. What the heck was that? Because it was just how we lived. That was our lives, how we're born and how we live in our lives. So a mother has children, say she has sons and daughters, and they are all in her clan. They all follow, whether they're male or female, follow our clan, our clan families, and we're very fortunate to have in place cultural teachings that have been with our people from the very beginning of our people, the way that we live. We had a great message that came to us at one time called the Peacemaker, came to our people. Our people were living in somewhat disarray, and this Peacemaker came to us and gave us many great teachings of how to live together. And to this day we follow those teachings. We have many reminders within our culture. We have specific people that are speakers that will come, and we will sit sometimes for 4 or 5 days and listen to this person recite these reminders to us. So it's very solid within our people. There's no doubt. I don't know what people think of feminism is, because we're all equal. It's not like a totally separate category. I also didn't plan this, so I'm just talking. So anyways, it's not a separate whole category. I mean, we do have males and we have females. We have specific teachings within our culture, our ways, our life. We follow things. We have our traditional ceremonies where we take care of each other. We do our medicinal ceremonies, spiritual things. There are a lot of misconceptions out there that come to us, and we've always been approached by people, mostly non-native women, coming to us and looking for words from us about power, looking for power, like female power, female women power. But actually, we live in equality. Our teachings teach us to live in equality. Everybody within our community has an equal opportunity, an equal voice. You're born into this clan family, and you have a specific name that belongs to that family. And this gives you your path in life. And when you know that, you appreciate what your path in life is. It gives you a certain strength, a strength that belongs to everybody. Everybody is taught to be thankful, to live a peaceful life, to be considerate, and to be humane. I don't know what else you want to hear, because it's not an unusual thing to myself to hear people thinking, and there are many myths out there. There are many myths that you hear, people that have a misconception about what they consider female power.
Put your mic closer. Sorry, that's the only way they can hear it.
Okay, so they didn't hear what I said. Okay, there are many misconceptions out there that people will assume, because they hear the word matriarchal. It's matrilineal. We don't have to be matriarchal, because we don't have royalty or anything like that. We're all equal. We do have certain people that are put into place. There are spiritual leaders of each clan family. For instance, there's a woman is chosen, and traditionally, the woman has been chosen for how she led her life, what type of a person this is, a person that believes in our cultural teachings and beliefs that are in place now, and that will lead the people in ceremonies of thanksgiving and teach people within the community how to care for each other. From birth to death, we care for each other. So, so each of our families have a woman that is in a given some, I don't want to say a title, but her name is considered the clan mother. She's like the mother figure of this very large clan family that we're born into. And it's her responsibility to look out for all the people and to make sure to help people, to counsel people, to live in peace, to keep things peaceful within our community, and to take care of children. She has some wonderful duty to choose a name for the new children that are born. We have certain ceremonies within our cycle that the new children can be born, can be named after they're born. And we have specific names that belong to these clan families. And it's this woman's responsibility to name these children. So that maybe not so much now, because our culture has taken a horrible blow, but it would be in the past when one of our people would meet each other and say their name the way that I did when I began, and then that you would immediately recognize their identity through their name and their language. We belong to a confederacy of 6 nations of people who basically have a basic linguistic language that we share, have different it's a basic root of it, but the different communities have a little bit different language, but they can speak to each other. And we all share in the same beliefs, so that if I go to another community and they were having a ceremony, for instance, we'd have our ceremony in a building this same shape, but much larger. And there are certain places where people sit. And because we're considered the same family, I can go into any one of these other communities, and I will have a place to sit. I know where my seat would be, what family. So we all share the same beliefs, the same treatments of each other, taking care of our children. I'm just meandering here, so. Right in my mouth?
Yes. So it's like this. But you can pass it because we're going to have conversation. So yeah.
Okay, soon. There's one major misbelief that I would like to correct right now, is that because many people hear about us and see this position of power with the women, because we do have men that were put into things that people call it an Indian chief, which it ain't, but because we have the title in our own language. But this woman is the mother of this clan family, so she watches over this man who is the spokesperson for this whole family. It's his responsibility to listen to the people's concerns and whatever they have to say, and then he will in turn look out for everybody. And if for some instance this man who is in this position, well, this man in this position is chosen for his human traits, for instance, for being a peaceful, kind, loving person, helpful and caring about people, and having led a good life. Well, if something would happen, something I don't know what, something would happen that would cause this man to step off his path. We call it the good path where this man is walking. And if something would happen that maybe he lost his path, he lost his way for a while, and was maybe not doing or behaving the way he should, this woman that stands with him, that chose him for this position, the clan mother there, would have has the opportunity to reprimand him several times and counsel him and help him to regain his footing back on the path of peace. If all fails and this man cannot return himself to the place where he should be, this woman can remove him. This position is a lifetime position, every one of them. She can take this man off this seat, so to speak, and remove him if all fails, to help him to find his way back. A lot of people hear about that and they think that is power. That's the power of the woman to strike this man down, this powerful man. But that's a misconception that a lot of people have, because if this would come to be this situation, it's not nice. It's not a thing to be glorified. Somebody has power over another person. It's actually very, very sad, solemn, tearful, extremely painful situation, because this man would have been lost some part of the good part of his life. And so it's not something to look at as a woman of power, because by the time this situation came to be, this woman and many people around her would have done everything they can to help this man to maintain his good path. So that's one misconception. I would like people to know that we live in a world where we are taught that everybody is equal. Everybody has the equal voice and opportunity to speak. Everybody, children, parents, grandparents, and be respectful to each other. The main teachings we have are respecting each other and caring for each other. I don't know.
Pisha Tabino, no Debraheri Menania, no Koyoi Dakata, no Koyoi Pa. Good day, everybody. Thank you for coming to listen to us. We're really kind of surprised at the turnout, but really thankful that you've come to listen to us talk about some issues I think that we all deal with from wherever we're from, whether we're Indigenous or not. We deal with systems that are foreign to us, that bring violence, that are built on patriarchy and power and hierarchy and domination and all of those kinds of things. So this is a topic that I think affects all of us in very important ways. I also want to acknowledge the people of this land and to thank them for hosting us. We're commonly known as Northern Paiute, my people, but we call ourselves Numu. That's our name. Northern Paiute is a label that was put on us, but I'm Numu from a place known as Pyramid Lake or Kuyuipa. And I'm an associate professor at the University of Nevada, Reno, and I teach in Indigenous Studies. I'm also a board member of the Indigenous Environmental Network and very happy to be here and that we have the PME going again this year. So we're very happy that we've been able to do this. So I want to talk a little bit about patriarchy because I think that's what we know all too well. I'm really happy to be here with my sister Jeannie. We go back many, many years. We've been good friends. I've had a chance to visit her community. We've traveled together. 1989, we're in Ecuador, right? The first preparing for the when the Americas were planning their celebration of Columbus, right? The arrival of Columbus. We were there to plan the indigenous reaction or counter to that whole celebration that was being planned. So anyway, we go way back, and what we're truly blessed with is the opportunity to hear about the Haudenosaunee society that is still a fully functioning, not only matrilineal society, but also within their traditional government structures. And I want to talk about the opposite, and I think a good example of the opposite, and I believe that almost all indigenous societies are matrilineal. They're not hierarchical, and they also do not have their roots in patriarchy. Patriarchy came with the Europeans. It came with the Spaniards, the French, the Dutch, and so on, who have a completely different belief about how to relate to women. So one of the examples that I read about is by a Maliseet woman. Her name is Andrea Bear Nichols. And she writes about how in their research from the late 1600s, when the Jesuit priests came to their territories, their home territories, they had to develop a plan to subdue the Maliseet, because what they found with the Maliseet was what Jeannie was describing, where men and women lived in a egalitarian society. No one had power over the other. And everyone had their roles and responsibilities and lived a good life. So what the Jesuit priests had planned then was a system to undermine that. And they said, first, we have to take the power, the decision-making power, away from the women, especially when it came to trade and economics. So they would only do trade with the men and displaced the women's role. And then they said, we have to separate the children from their families so they can learn something different, and that violence is okay. It's okay to use violence on these children. And so we all know that story. They also said we have to remove them from their land. So we know that story. And then what they had to replace was a way of making decisions. And so in Andrea's writing, she talks about what we see now is the installment of the patriarchal governance system, which is the elected governance system, in which the men have power, the men have control, but it's a complete opposite of who they are supposed to be as Maliseet with a matrilineal society. So to me, that's the reality of what we live in, is this absolute clash of who we're supposed to be as indigenous peoples and how we're supposed to operate with what we see today. Elective systems, mining taking place on our lands, everything's commodified. We have hierarchical structures governing our own people. Often it's men who are in the positions of power, especially over economics and over land, over resources, right? And they'll say that women are in charge of the social issues or whatever, but you have that divide in power. And when the early feminists saw matrilineal societies, that influenced their thinking. Because when European women came here, they had no such status. They were considered chattel. They were considered the property of men. In fact, there was a European law that actually came and was enacted here by states called the Blackstone Code or something like that. And it said when a woman marries, she no longer has legal status as a person. She becomes basically the property of the man. So that law kind of got instituted in the state laws around here. And so even in like founding documents of the Constitution, women had no power. They still were not considered persons. The children belonged to the men. Okay.
A man could give a child away without
A man, the children are considered the property of the man, and so he could give the children away without the woman's consent. A man could commit violence, sexual violence against the woman, and it wouldn't be considered rape because that was his right to do so. And even if she tried to run, they would just be returned back to that violence, right? That's the status of women. That was the status of European women that comes with a patriarchal society. And so when they set up their systems in our homelands here, they carried all of that with them. It's built into the laws of this American system. The power structures, the subjugation and oppression of women and people of color, all of those are built into the Constitution, right? The Declaration of Independence. You can read the language. You can read the early Supreme Court decisions. You know, African American people are slaves. They're not fully human. They're in the language of the law. They say that they were, 3/5 of a person? Right? There was no such thing as any kind of equality or egalitarian anything that comes with patriarchy, because patriarchy is designed to control and to own and to dominate. And so for those of us who come from matrilineal systems, and we have that at home, that's what our system is, our job is to try to protect that and revitalize that and operationalize it, right? In the face of patriarchy, and know that you're going to run up against these structures that oppose that are trying to undermine that. So I think one thing that Jeannie said that I think is really important is to recognize that word matrilineal versus matriarchy, because matriarchy suggests power structure up. Okay, so even just checking our language when we talk about these things is really important.
I'd like to tell you a little bit about the community I live in. I live at Onondaga Nation. We call it Ganakta. It is the central fire of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy of our people, and our homeland stretches from what is now known Quebec. In Quebec, there are communities that go across New York State up into southwestern Ontario, and there are some people in Wisconsin. We belong to a very large family, and we all know each other. And like I said before, we're very fortunate that we have our teachings in place, that we have ceremonies and times that we are reminded of all of our the ways that we should be. So I've been really fortunate that I come from a family that told us all about these things, and we actually lived that way. So by the time I was a kid, having a fun time living in the country, and then just nice and peaceful and playing in a creek and running around and having garden, and then as I got older, then stuff, I started learning stuff that was going on around us. That was going, I learned a lot of stuff, you know, because they don't tell you the truth in school. They squelch everything. They try to change your identity. They beat down your spirit, turn you into these little Indians on a list someplace. Excuse me, I get a little bit worked up. I'll try not to swear. So I'm thankful. I am the oldest child of 10 in our family, and we all live pretty close to the way that we should be, you know. So it gave me a lot of really good, I guess, strong spirit of knowing who I am, knowing where I belong, being happy where I am. I love where I live. I wish everybody could say that. It's such a peaceful feeling. It takes constant daily somebody to take care of it. I live in a community that is very rare. We have our sovereignty. We have a very small piece of land that we are left. All the original territory of our people around us has been taken away from us through illegal means, trickery and murder and anything bad. They took it. We're left with a small piece, but we have absolute sovereignty there. We have no federal nor state government system inside of our community. We have our traditional spiritual leaders, the titles that have been handed down with our people for generations, ages and ages. And those are the people that maintain our community. This sovereignty, we don't have any agencies coming into our community without permission. We're not backward. We do have like one of the best fire departments around. We have a school. We have normal stuff, but it takes a lot of work. And growing up listening to these things that our people always did, and our teachings of taking care of each other. So in turn, I ended up spending 34 years of my life being a home birth midwife and empowering people to come back to have possession of their own bodies and themselves and their lives and not fear natural things, how to take care of each other properly with the medicines that are given to us by our people, things that are all around us that keep us strong, good bodies and a good mind, how to help each other to have a good mind. So I spent 34 years traveling within our communities doing free home birth, helping people to regain that had been taken away along the whole list of everything. Our people had been suffering such great damage. Fortunately, the community that I live in did not have as much of this boarding school as some other places did. There were people that went away, and they can tell you some really tearful stories about it. You know, when you hear those stories, you could just cry. I mean, somebody's a 3-year-old child living in a dormitory, some damn place far away, erasing their culture, their identity, cut their hair off, and it's just endless, the horrible things that have happened. So living in this community, part of a confederacy, we have to work very hard and very strong all the time to maintain who we are, because it wouldn't take much of a couple slips and it could be all gone because they're just waiting on the edge. We're one of the very few communities left on this continent that has absolute sovereignty of our territory. So I just wanted to tell you about that. We also have our own passport. I've traveled all over the place with this thing, and many people have traveled around the world with this passport. It's been a hard time to get people to accept it because the United States is not going to accept the fact that there is another whole country living on this continent that is not part of the United States or New York State. That's we live in surrounded by the state of New York, but we are not part of them. So this passport has been all over the place. That's just part of the thing I want to tell you, that all these teachings that we share amongst ourselves with men and women that keep us strong and maintain our identity and be proud of who we are and be able to travel anywhere on this earth. I can go anywhere. I can go anywhere and be glad to get back home because I truly love where I am. I know the history. I've been unfortunately been able to uncover a lot of the untrue history that has happened to our people and share it, because even our own native people around this country are denied the history of our territories.
I think I want to just make one more contribution, and then we'll open it up for questions. I think what we're talking about is actually beyond gender, and it's not limited to gender, because really what we're talking about is the invasion and all of the systems that have been brought in place to dominate over Indigenous peoples of this land, of these lands, all of these lands. And it's not just the Americas, it's everywhere there were non-Christian people. European countries went to those places believing they had a right to take our territories. And they based that on the idea that Indigenous people were inferior, that we were less than human. Some of you may have heard about this as the doctrine of discovery, or the doctrine of Christian discovery. And so, who are the colonizing countries? Europe, right? France, Spain, Italy, the Dutch, the British. Okay, they're the ones who believe that the Portuguese. They're the ones they had the right by virtue of the Vatican, Christianity, to go to wherever the lands are of non-Christian people, and being the first Christian people there, that they had the right to claim that land. That's how they believe they came to be here and have a right to be here and to set up their systems here. And it's based on that false belief that we're less than human. And those beliefs have been embedded in the U.S. court decisions, U.S. Supreme Court. Even as recent as, 2005, in the Cheryl case against the Oneida people, ruling against them, saying that the Oneidas don't have their land because the doctrine of discovery gave the land to the United States. That's how deep these beliefs run and how they've been embedded into the laws of this country, these countries. And so who are the non-Christian people of the world? Everywhere else except those colonizing European countries. That's how common our experiences are. If you are a non-European Christian people. So who went to the Philippines? Who went to Pacific? Who went to Australia? Who went to Asia? Who went to Africa? Right? And tried and used the doctrine of discovery to claim those lands. and claimed the right to enslave those people or to murder them because they were not Christian. So those are the systems that came here and have been embedded into the societies that surround us now. If you grew up in this system, you may believe that that is your system, but it's not. It's the invader system. And so the work we have ahead of us is what we talk about as decolonization or re-indigenation, re-indigenizing, revitalizing, rebuilding, revitalizing our languages, our governance systems, our social, economic, cultural, spiritual systems. That's the work we have ahead of us so that we don't get caught up into believing in these patriarchal, power-dominating systems that are used against us and our right to be. So I'm going to... Yeah, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I want to tell you about this book that she has here. Was written by a very good friend of mine, Dr. Sally Roche Wagner, who is a feminist historian and came to the area. Yeah. Well, she came to the area of the Haudenosaunee because she was doing research on feminine history, and she came as kept having these coincidental things that she was discovering during her research, and she started to write books because what she had uncovered was the fact that when the missionaries came to missionize everybody, of course they put themselves right on Indian reservations and in communities in their attempt to missionize us. But what happened are the wives of these missionaries, ministers and pastors, whatever they were, when these wives started seeing the Haudenosaunee women that have equal rights, that are matrilineal, that we have the children's identity, that we have the right to own property. These women were in all of our went to all of our different communities because they were invading us, going to turn us into a bunch of Christians. Well, all these women start seeing all this stuff, and they got together. And this area in not far from where we live was the birthplace of the women's rights movement in Seneca Falls, New York. These were the women, basically women of different Christian ministers that had seen the difference in a matrilineal life. So she has a book here she's passing around. I just wanted to let you know that that happened in our area, and then it spread all over the women's rights movement, which is not exactly the same thing as us, but that's what they took their original ideas from and organized.
It's fine, Joe. We'll do some questions. Some questions. So thank you so much as I'm listening to these brilliant women, thinkers, and activists and actors, people who take action in our community. Activist is maybe not the right word, but these are thinkers and also people who take action in our communities. And as I listen to them speak, I think about what makes us strong as a people, what makes societies strong. And a lot of times it's the role of everyone, including women. And so as an environmental justice organization, we think a lot about the connection between the role of everyone in society and the health of Mother Earth, the health of our societies, the health of our own bodies, the health of our relationships, the health of our children, the health of our food, the health of our water. So all of those things, all of those systems, or really, I don't know what to call them, all of those ways of life, all of those energies that sustain us, those things depend upon the equity, the equality, the voice of everyone, young people, men, women, two-spirit, everyone. And so, especially when there are attempts around colonization or land theft, all of those things, in order for that to happen, those relationships, those strengths have to be broken. They can't take our land until they break those relationships. They can't take our land until they break us. I'm sure some people have seen that meme that goes around that a nation is not defeated until the hearts of its women are on the ground. And it may sound a little cliche, but it's true. And so as we reclaim our relationship to Mother Earth, as we take up our responsibility to protect our Mother Earth, to protect our children, to protect our own bodies, to protect our own life-giving abilities, to protect our intellectual, what's that called? Intellectual, not property, knowledge systems. All of those things. We have to understand, yes, what happened, and then we have to repair it. And one of the ways that is very powerful is to reclaim, I don't want to say power anymore because my auntie talked about that, but to reclaim that place that we have, that natural place that we have. Because I've also heard this statement, which is that not only do we need the land, but the land needs us. If we're doing it right, the land needs us. So at this moment, as we are trying to reclaim feminism, because as our auntie talked about, there was these models of matrilineal societies that were very enticing or were very beautiful to people who did not have that or who had been taken away from. Because I truly believe that all of us come from earth-based societies if you go back far enough. And there was more equality if you go back far enough. And our relationship with the earth for all humans had to be one of reciprocity and respect. Otherwise, we wouldn't have survived. So I want to open it up for a few people to talk about what does feminism mean for you or in your community? When you think about feminism, is that word the word you use? What does it mean for you? What does it mean to reclaim those balanced relationships, those balanced societies for us? And what does it mean when we do that? What happens? What happens when we do that? So I'm going to, if you want to raise your hand, I don't know if there's a timekeeper. Benishi, my sister back here. So I also want to say that I also want to acknowledge Benishi because she and I started the Indigenous Feminisms program here at IEN a few years ago. And we traveled to Brazil, we traveled to Guatemala to make relationships with our sisters there and to learn more about the similarities and to recognize the solidarity. So I'll turn it over to her.
Yeah, not too long. Just 3 quick things, maybe a 4th, but for me, feminism, I do consider myself a feminist, right? But I also believe for me, feminism is a strategy to counter patriarchy. Right? And I 100% believe what the women here shared about matrilineal. That's what I'm trying to move towards. But as we're trying to continue to build that and open up the space for that to continue to grow and nourish, we have to stamp down the patriarchy that has been shutting down the spaces for women, and how women have held leadership in community. So even though I think that that term feminist has been a struggle for lots of Indian women, Indigenous women, I do consider myself a feminist because I consider myself an actor against patriarchy. And if you break down that word patriarchy, it's about rule, dominance, authority of the father, right? So I think it's important, what Grandma shared here about matrilineal is not, like, we're not saying women in power, we're saying matrilineal is our traditional ways of being, and that place of being and the role of being. My people, Yuchi people, had a similar history of women holding the land wealth of the family, but government and traders only wanted to trade with the men, and they displaced that role of the women. So that was that one, two things I think there. I thought it was interesting that Deborah brought up the case of Cheryl versus Oneida Nation, because that decision from the Supreme Court was, that whole study and that decision was from Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the icon of contemporary feminism, also made a decision that was in direct conflict and direct diminishing of Indigenous sovereignty. So we can't disconnect those issues, right? Like that homegirl, she did that. She did that. And she did lots of other things that were important for women in general. But she also was the main Supreme Court judge who ruled on that decision. And that decision is named after her, if I remember right. Y'all can Google it. Y'all can Google it. But I think that, the opportunity that is in front of us is how do we engage both what we're trying to move towards at the same time of what is it that we need to deconstruct, right? So deconstructing patriarchy is why feminism is necessary, but that's not the same thing as what we're trying to build in terms of Indigenous matrilineal systems and how we're trying to build that up. Those are complementary things, but they're different things.
Told you she was brilliant. Anyone else want to make some comments about feminism in your community or what it means for you?
Good afternoon, relatives. Dakapi, my name is Andrew Cat Ironshell. I'm Eastern Band who was raised out among the Lakota, and I live in Rapid City, South Dakota. And I thank you all for this conversation. We need to have more of these conversations. On a personal level, I think about it like I didn't understand the language that we're talking because it's the oppressor's language, right? So I always didn't feel like I need to understand that. I know it's bad. So I kind of shied away from these terminologies. But in my work as a community organizer for Indian Collective, we have a very diverse staff. And within that diverse staff, we hold each other accountable as family, as relatives. And so in that light, I'm learning how to be a better man, how to decolonize myself and my actions. And I just wanted to mention that something I hope that I'm doing right is I'm a father, a single father with daughters. And I've kind of long time ago decided that I was gonna not be that father that's bossy, or you should do it like this. That's the way. No, that was wrong of me, and I was that way at the beginning with my children. And I had to come to an understanding of what the church had taught us, what the church had taught our community, especially as men, how we behave. And so there was a lot of unteaching that I still go through. I'm 60 years old, I'm still learning to be a good relative, to be a good man in the way that our traditions, our ancestors had walked. And so I just wanted to encourage this conversation, especially among us men. We need to hold each other accountable and have this conversation among us men. And it's hard. We all know it's hard to even have these conversations, much less get men together to have a conversation of how we behave and how important it is to get along and do these things, because we're fighting for the same thing. We're fighting to protect Mother Earth. And when we do these things, we are reminded that the teachings of our mother come in many forms, through each other, through touching the earth, through holding the ceremonies. But the main thing that it comes together, this power, is when we live it. When we try to exercise our responsibility as a man, as a woman, as who we are in the different ages that we'll go through. And so it's a beautiful setting here and a beautiful energy and such beautiful people. I always tell our community the brilliance is around us. We don't have to look outside. That savior mentality was never ours, right? It floated in here somehow. But I just wanted to thank you and let you know how grateful I am for each of you and the lives you live and the work that you do. Wopila, pilamayo. Thank you.
Miigwech, miigwech. Such an important piece, right, is that everyone has to take accountability, do self-assessment, and make change. And it's not always easy, so miigwech, miigwech. Anyone else want to have some thoughts? Oh, who was first? Okay. Oh, I'm going to hear from a lady first for a second. Yeah. Okay.
So, hello. My name is Dr. Carrie Arguello. I come to you, I live in Hickory, North Carolina, and by trade, I'm an HR person, and by passion, I am a teacher and a leader in a very small community. I want to share with you a story that was shared with me, and I hope that it will help you and add some value. I was born and raised in Florida, so lobsters and things that come from the ocean make sense to me. And I learned many years ago that lobsters have to put themselves in a very uncomfortable position for them to be able to grow. And so I asked questions about this. And what happens is, for a lobster to be able to grow, it has to shed its exoskeleton. Or it's going to die, because it won't be able to continue to eat. It won't be able to continue the growth that is necessary for its life. So I challenge you, if you shed your exoskeleton, it puts you in a very vulnerable and very dangerous place. And yet, if you don't do it, you leave yourself in a position where you are stuck and our communities are stuck. So leaning into that discomfort and leaning into that personal growth is so hard, and yet it's the very vital piece of who we are as a people together.
Thank you so much. It's hard to make change. Okay. Yeah.
Bueno, hola, buenas tardes. Soy Rosalba Velasco. Soy indígena del pueblo Nasa del norte del Cauca, en Colombia. Rosalba Velasco, del pueblo Nasa. Nasa, del norte del departamento del Cauca, en Colombia. Cauca, Colombia. Es un gusto estar aquí, poder escucharlas. Y bueno, creo que hablar de los feminismos para las mujeres indígenas es bastante complicado y complejo, diría yo. Hasta muchas de nosotras ¿cómo se puede decir? Lo satanizamos, ¿no? La palabra feminismo. Lo vemos como lo malo y lo que nos han traído las blancas. O al menos en nuestro pueblo indígena un poco lo ven así los hombres, pero también algunas mujeres indígenas. Lo que yo tengo claro y también por lo que lucho es que efectivamente los pueblos indígenas teníamos una forma distinta de relacionarnos antes de que llegara la conquista de nuestros territorios. Y estamos nosotras en esa búsqueda de poder encontrar realmente cuál era esa forma de relacionarnos que creo que era realmente muy distinta, en donde la mujer tenía un papel también distinto al que tiene hoy. Del lugar que las mujeres tenemos hoy, ¿no? Que era algo distinto. Porque el patriarcado nos ha traído el poder del hombre hacia la mujer. Nos ha traído también dominación, no solo al territorio que es mujer, sino a la vida de las mujeres. Nos ha traído violencias y una de esas es la violencia sexual. Y la violencia sexual es una práctica que seguramente, como dicen algunos en Colombia y en los pueblos indígenas, la trajo la conquista, pero se quedó en el territorio. Hemos tenido a lo largo de la historia, yo soy investigadora indígena, comunitaria, y he tenido la oportunidad de investigar sobre el tema de la violencia sexual en mi pueblo. Para entender un poco por qué sucede esto de la violencia sexual, ¿no? Y uno logra encontrar que efectivamente el sentir el dominio del hombre hacia la mujer, esta práctica es una forma de eso, ¿no? De cómo te domino, cómo te manipulo. Y sin quererlo, bueno, a lo largo de estos últimos años, también logré encontrar un poco que efectivamente la violencia sexual ha marcado la vida de muchas de nuestras ancestras, de nuestras madres, abuelas. Y en el caso muy personal, mi madre lo vivió. Y fue tanto la situación que ella tuvo, de que nunca fue capaz de hablar y de contar de que ella fue abusada por su tío, y que mi hermana mayor es fruto de ese abuso, de esa violencia, de esa violación. Mi hermana. Uh-huh.
And without meaning to, I come to discover that this violence has marked the lives of our ancestors, of our mothers, of our grandmothers. My mother lived this personal experience, so much so that she was abused and never talked about by her uncle, and that su hermana menor o mayor?
Mayor.
And my older sister was born from this.
Entonces, al encontrar que mi madre vivió esto, es un poco lo que ahora me motiva, ¿no?, a luchar, a continuar luchando en nuestro propio pueblo y poder hacerle un poco entender, ¿no?, a la nueva juventud, diríamos, a la niñez y a la juventud, que tenemos que rescatar nuestras propias formas de relacionarnos, porque el patriarcado no nos ha hecho bien.
new generation understands that we have to save ourselves. We have to understand, we recognize our way of relating because the patriarchy has done us wrong.
Pero también es importante decir que también el patriarcado nos ha enseñado a las mujeres vernos como rivales y competencia.
The patriarchy also has taught us as women to see each other as rivals and competition.
Y tenemos que transformar esa forma porque no somos eso. Las mujeres somos amor, somos cariño, somos amistad, somos compañerismo, somos fuerza. Pero el patriarcado nos ha enseñado todo lo contrario y eso es lo que hay que rescatar. No somos el sexo débil, somos al contrario esa fuerza femenina que potencia a nuestras organizaciones, a nuestras familias y eso es lo que hay que rescatar. Así que agradezco por este espacio.
So we have to transition away from that thought because we are not that. Women, we are love, we are care, we are friendship, we are companionship, we are strength. And the patriarchy has also tried to take away our truth of women are also the strength of our organizations, the strength of our families. And so I thank you all very much for this.
Yeah. Hello, my name's Chloe. I'm from New Jersey and I do environmental justice organizing in Newark specifically. And I'm definitely really reflective of everything that everyone has said, especially during this panel, and reflecting on how women have been such a prominent role in the work that gets done, essentially, if that makes sense. We have a team of many femmes and non-binary folks as well on our team that have done so much great things. And before starting this panel, I think one of the questions that I was kind of thinking was, how would this align with what we view as intersectional feminism? And to just give a little bit of reflections of what I was listening to when I heard you guys speak, it sounded like our search for power in society is kind of quenched by obtaining equality, and that's what our true goal should be. And it kind of made me think, like, is power on an individual scale rooted in selfishness? Because if we're looking for power dynamics in the things that we do, like, how are we truly looking for the better for everyone and in our environment as a whole? And I also think that I also heard that separating men and women can be disparaging and enforces gender roles that dissolve communal structures in our communities overall. I think I really appreciate, trying to divest from something like the matriarchy that does further encourage unbalanced power structures and looking into something that is matrilineal. I've never heard that before, actually, so I'm grateful for that. And I think that I'm kind of wondering as well, because when we look at American society's perception of feminism, it's rooted in white feminism, really. Like, that's why a lot of folks are steering away from it, because it's not truly it doesn't truly see equity. It doesn't truly see everyone here in this room even. And it's also a form of violence to those who endure it, if that makes sense. But I'm kind of wondering as well, what are ways that we can continue to have these types of conversations in other rooms that we go into and see forms of action in that when we start divesting from that type of perspective, I guess you can say. I know that was a lot.
This is one of the things that we try to create space for when we have the Protecting Mother Earth conferences, because we know that our speakers present a lot of information, but that also the participants that are here contribute to the conversation. So we always try to make space in our panels for the brilliance that you all bring, and we're so grateful for you. Thank you. But we'll continue on.
Thank you. Thank you, speakers. Thank you, the conference people. Oh, thank you. I'm Dorothy Woods Shockley from Alaska. I just wanted to say I grew up hearing the word feminism and it being a bad word. So, just thinking about this and thinking about what other words we can use that would bring it more positive, and just make it more positive, I suppose. So, but the other thing is clans. In some areas of Alaska, clans are still intact, but in my area, it isn't. So, reestablishing those, and if anybody else have gone through that process of reestablishing their clans, I mean, we're matriarchal as well, but I would like to hear that as well, just to help us become more of who we actually are naturally as far as matriarchal society. And not only that, there's how we establish it in our tribal governments as well, because even those are very patriarchal. I mean, we don't have, we have most of the big organizations, native organizations, are still run by men. So, thank you.
Thank you. Megan, thanks for waiting.
Madakiapi, Chante Westanape, Giuseppe Custo, Tawapa Otawi Machiapi. Hello, my relatives. I am Tawapaha Otawi. I am Many Warbonnets woman. I come from Milks Camp community in South Dakota. My elders, who I learned from, were Nellie Toolbowles and Albert Whitehat, and I was sitting in on a session a few months before Nellie passed, and we were talking about women's roles. And I remember all the grandmas that were sitting in there, and just sitting in that room with that knowledge was very powerful in itself. But they were supposed to be talking about birthing ceremonies. And Albert came in and he put his head down and he shook their hands and he wanted to bring in, and he said, "There's nothing more powerful than the woman in nature, because she is the birth giver. Without having that female, we don't continue on in life." And so, me as a plant person, I pay attention to all the plants and the fungi and all of our relatives that don't have voices.
Sorry, workshops. This announcement, these will be the last workshops this afternoon. Each workshop started at about 3:30, and they're going to continue. It's their option. These workshops are 1.5 hours, so I think they're going to take up 2 hours. So each coordinator and moderator knows they have extra time. There's not going to be any workshops after this trial. Thank you. There will be repeats on some of these topics in the next couple of days.
So to remind ourselves that without that feminine energy, but it's not just feminine, because feminine also goes into our two-spirit people, our true two-spirit people, because they have different languages, they have different ceremonies, because I am Lakota, and we believe that they are a powerful medicine in themselves. So it's not just about male and female, because that can change. That's kind of fluid, depending upon the powers that you're given through ceremony, through dreams. And what I was reminded by, or sitting here talking and listening to, I also ask forgiveness for speaking before you, that my elders, instilled on us about our natural gifts that we are given, but also the gifts that we are learned, because as we come into this world, we all share our energy, whether it's feminine or male. It energy kind of comes through us, and so when we're talking about, really looking at changing systems, it's not, we can't return to our old ways, but we can learn from our old ways and bring them forward for deeper lessons. And so what we try to do, because I'm a mother of 7 daughters, and I am the oldest of all brothers, and so I raised up all boys. And when I when I was growing up, I said, I'm going to have all boys because they're easy. And then Creator laughed at me. And are they lessons? And so as I was gifted these amazing 7 girls, because 7 is a sacred number for us Lakota people, and so I stopped there and my husband got snipped. But as these girls grow and they come into, their coming of age ceremony, their Anishinaabe, and they're changing into things, and I see how my girls are, they're very fluid in their gender and in their feelings for other people. And we encourage that, we don't steer anyone either way. But I'm also reminded of what Nellie said. She said, when we're talking about power structures, she says, we didn't believe in that structure. We believed that everyone had a voice at the table. And we believed that our unchis and our grandmas held the most power in our traditional leadership structures, because they were the birth givers. They were the ones that carried the food and prepared the medicines for the people. And our men were our support. They were the ones to help us carry the loads that we weren't able to do. And so bringing that forward, I tell my girls, that as they're growing, that there is no such thing as a traditional gender role. Women aren't just meant to wash the dishes and care for the children. That it's everyone's job to take care of the home, and we all move together. And when we are preparing our medicines, our spiritual leaders, my Lala Richard, Broken Nose, and he told me that when he was growing up and he was learning these ways, he says his spiritual teacher told him that young girls that were on their moon had the most powerful spirit, and that when they go and harvest the medicines, that is the one that has the strongest spirit medicine. And so, our young girls, when they come through Anishinaabe, and we teach them at camp about their roles as being a young woman, it's more fluid, but they have to understand that the power that they have of being a young woman and being on their moon or coming towards that moon time, that they are the ones that can gather the most powerful spirit medicine that we can have as Lakota people. And I just wanted to share that.
As the facilitator, it's my job not to talk too much, but I would like to just acknowledge something that Megan said around moon time. And I think a lot of us have teachings around moon time. I'm guessing we do. And my mom always taught me, much like what you said, is that when we're on our time, we're like a walking ceremony. We're the most powerful. We're the most beautiful. Not the most beautiful. We're always the most beautiful. But that's a time when we care for ourselves, when we take care of ourselves, when we pray, and that everything that we do is beautiful. But within patriarchy, those beautiful ways and teachings get twisted. So instead of being on your moon time as a time of beauty, as a time of self-reflection, as a time of self-care, it becomes something of shame. It becomes, oh, don't go there because you're dirty. Don't go by ceremony because you're going to bring bad things to ceremony. But instead, it's that you're a walking ceremony. You're so much power that you don't even need to go to ceremony because you're already ceremony. So that's the teachings that my mom gave me, and I'm so grateful for those because it was switching that worldview. It's switching that worldview. It's reclaiming our own worldview about who we are. So, someone next?
Hello, everybody. My name is Laura. Hi. I'm from the Embera community in Colombia, in Chocó region in Antioquia. And we are the only community on the Western Hemisphere that still practices female genital mutilation. And it's not something traditional to our lands, to our people, to our cosmovision. It was brought here by colonization, and it's rooted deeply in the patriarch. And it has affected our women so much that they're leaving their territories. They don't want to be part of this colonized mindset of this possession of a woman's body. And so I wanted to share that with you, and I wanted to share a story, a real life situation that's happening right now with one of my friends' communities. She's YU. She's indigenous to La Guajira, or the coastal area of Colombia and Venezuela. They are a matrilineal community, and they are based off of clans. But right now, patriarchy is so rooted in some communities surrounding her territory. The other day, she and her mother's the leader of her community, and one day they were sitting, talking between elders and other members of the community, when a group of men, another group of YU men from a nearby community, kind of rolled up unexpectedly to the community and pretty much asked my mother's friend, or my friend's mother, what her role was in the community. And she said, "I'm the authoritative figure. I'm the leader of my community, and I make decisions for everybody here. Social, sorry, I'm like nervous right now." Thank you. And they asked her for proof of this leadership. And when she showed them proof, they got really mad, and they said, "We don't want you as a woman to be a leader. We don't believe that you should be a leader. We want a man in charge." Now, they're not even part of this community. They were miles away, and they still came and had the audacity to tell Edilia, that's her name, that she wasn't meant to be a leader, and that they were to shut down all the school programs that they had built over the years. They were to shut down a water system that they were building for their community, until that leadership role was put in a man's position. And so I question myself, and I think, how far has this colonial mindset of a patriarchy comes to where even the men in our communities are inciting this violence, to the point where they have threatened to massacre the community unless they make this change. And so I just wanted to share that with you. I'm not a really good speaker, but I felt like I needed to share this message and just kind of remind everybody, this is why we need to decolonize. This is why we need to have these spaces and talk with each other. And I'm really thankful to be here and to be surrounded by so many beautiful relatives. And thank you for allowing me to speak.
I just want to say you are a beautiful speaker, and the more you do it, I think that I'm one of the most nervous Nelly speakers, but it's good to hear your voice, and it's really good to hear all your voices. And, our relative asked about intersectional feminism, and I can say that we are intersectional. Benishi and Simone, they created this Feminisms program, and they were very careful in selecting words. So we always try to be inclusive. We always say women, femme, and two-spirit, because we want to recognize the binaries. We want to push back against patriarchy, but we're also strongly believe that our liberation is tied to everybody else's liberation, that our liberation is tied to those in Palestine, to those in Congo, to those in Darfur, that no one is free until we are all free. And our feminisms, that is what's going to bring us into this other world. Our earth, our mother, ourselves, you know, as femme, as non-binary, as two-spirit. We're in this together. And our fight, you know, what's happening in Palestine. And Ashe is Palestinian. She's here. And I want to acknowledge the fact that we have a relative here. You know, we have faced genocide, and we're standing with our relatives. And so I just want to say that it's hard to speak in public for me as well, but this is such an important topic. We all need to stand together. And what always confuses and muddies the issue is we sometimes start disagreeing about certain semantics or certain this or certain that, and all of a sudden we see fissures and we see fractions. And so what I really hope this conversation can do is bring out what we have in common. And really what I'm hearing is that we've all been impacted by colonial patriarchy, and we all have the work, men, women, two-spirit, non-binary, to confront this, to change it, because our earth is depending on us. So, is there...
Hello, everybody. My name is Winter Harry. I come from the Dakota tribe and Pyramid Lake Paiute. So I wanted to talk to you about. So I wrote it all down. So I was raised with a lot of female role models, and in my family, including my aunts, cousins, and mainly my great-grandmother, my unchi, my hubi. So after my great-grandmother passed, you know, it's hard to move on from trauma, it's hard to move on, but you just gotta keep pushing and stuff. But what's been really helping me was ceremony, powwows, uweepi, sweat, just mainly ceremonies, and praying mainly. My great grandmother she was the glue to our family. She was the glue to our family. She kept everybody together. But after she passed, it's been really hard. She left a lot of family behind, but it happens. That's just a way of life. She was our matriarch. She was powerful. She was just great. And so I just wanted to share with you how you just gotta keep moving on from life. You just gotta keep pushing and keep pushing. Thank you. Wopila. Pija'u.
She says, here's the future.
Bom dia a todos e todas. E primeiramente eu quero agradecer esse convite feita pela Claire. Somos do Brasil, viemos em 3. Sou do estado de Mato Grosso do Sul. Sou uma jovem e peço uma licença perante que para nós, como jovens, pessoas muito importantes, de ouvir essas histórias, porque para nós, no Brasil, se chama o livro que está vivo, né? O livro aberto. Eu tenho meu avô de 105 anos de idade, é liderança, cacique, e eu sou uma neta que está ali na caminhada de liderança. É um desafio para a gente jovem, mulher, e para mim é uma honra de estar aqui aprendendo uma nova experiência junto com as mulheres e os demais. O que eu quero compartilhar aqui com vocês é que nós no Brasil, como mulheres, não somos diferentes. Como foi dito aqui por vários, que as mulheres dentro da nossa comunidade, a gente tem a igualdade, mas com a invasão do colonialismo é que veio e modificou tudo. Vamos dizer, no sentido de cada coisa colocou no seu lugar. E hoje nós, como Guarani Kaiowá, continuamos sim forte, porém precisamos, nós como jovens, descolonizar a mente. Porque a colonização, quanto mais, né, eu sou um jovem que não convivi junto com os meus avós, porém, eu tento entender as histórias do passado, que pra gente, mulheres, é muito dolorido. Mas a gente tenta, como que eu vou dizer, construir o que foi destruído no modo de ser indígena, na cultura, no modo de ser, na infantilidade da menina, do adolescente, do jovem, porque nós temos a nossa própria cultura. Porém, isso, a colonização, ele veio realmente, e cada vez mais, dentro disso, né, retirando o que a gente tem, que é a terra. Né? A gente considera a terra como mãe, porque nela está a nossa vida, nela está tudo o que nós necessitamos. E nós resistimos, somos os povos que estamos ali resistindo para recuperar e poder reconstruir o que foi destruído pelos colonizadores. Então, eu acho que é isso que eu quero deixar aqui para a gente. E vamos ser cunhambaretê, que fala na nossa língua, que é mulheres fortes, mulheres guerreiras. Obrigada.
Caramba, mate. So, good afternoon, and thank you so much for the invitation to be here with you all. Thank you, especially to Claire for inviting me. I am a young Guarani woman from Brazil, and really I see life as an open living book, and it's full of powerful women such as my grandmother, who is 105 years old and is a leader and a chief and a great inspiration for us all. I think the challenge for Indigenous youth, and in particular for Indigenous young women, is to really follow in the footsteps of these great women like my grandmother. And I'm so delighted to be here, and I'm learning so much from you sisters, but also from everyone here. As has been said this afternoon, Indigenous women in Brazil also live and breathe a form of equality in our communities. However, colonialism has invaded our spaces and changed everything. And really, in our worldview and in our culture, everyone has a role. Everyone has a place, and as Guarani, we are really committed to decolonizing our mind. Some of our youth, like myself, have not had the honor of being brought up with our elders, but and we're well aware of the pain of the past and of colonialism. So what we the challenge that we take up is to build what has been destroyed. We're rebuilding what they took away from us, and we're really reconnecting with how we should live as Indigenous youth and as Indigenous women. And it's difficult, right? Because we're in two worlds, and especially for the Guarani, that other world has really encroached on our territory and stolen our land. But our Mother Earth is our touchstone. She's the source of our life and provides us with all that we need, including the inspiration to continue to resist and to recover our cultures. And like I said before, to continue to build what's been destroyed. And I want you all to learn a Guarani word, which is the word for powerful women. And ¿cómo se dice? ¿Cómo fala?
Cuñambarete. Cuñambarete. Cuñambarete.
Boa tarde. Meu nome é indígena, Cunhá Quarahã. Meu nome em branco, Leila Rocha. Meu nome indígena é Cunhá Quarahã, mulher sou. Quarahã, mulher sou. Então eu vou fazer um cântico, um pouquinho, né? Porque eu sou uma indígena, liderança. Eu fiz uma grande retomada na fronteira do Paraguai. Eu sou uma liderança que eu cuido da minha comunidade indígena do Brasil, né? Sou de Mato Grosso do Sul. Eu sou Guarani-Andeva, que vive na fronteira Paraguai. Então vou cantar um pouquinho a minha reza, né? Eu sei que a minha reza você não vai poder escrever. Então fala assim a minha reza, né? Esse daqui, nós indígenas de Mato Grosso do Sul, com esse que se chama Baracá. são muito poderosos que o nosso ancestrais usava para entrar no seu território tradicionais. Com esse daqui, a gente vive dentro do nosso território para poder se a gente ser respeitado pelo menos um pouquinho, né? Então, eu acredito muito a reza dos povos Guarani Kaiowá, porque são muito é muito bom, porque a reza que a gente vive com a reza lá em Mato Grosso do Sul, né? Sem reza, povo indígena Guarani, nós não somos nada, não. Porque esse veio, nós fomos ensinados, né? Que a pessoa que não está aqui na terra. Então, a nossa, sempre a gente fala, nosso antepassado, ancestrais já veio, né? Pelo nosso protetor, dali de cima, que já foi dado para ele, para poder se salvar a comunidade indígena. Então, é nossa maracá e tem a outra, nossa taquá, quando bate no chão e pega esse maracá, e nós temos muita força. A gente tem força para a gente lutar pela nossa terra tradicionais, para a gente ocupar, para a gente viver, porque nós acreditamos muito, nós, povo Guarani Kaiowá, nós amamos muito essa mata, o rio, a árvore. Então, por lado a gente não, por lado que nós moramos, já não existe mais ao mato desse, porque grande ruralista, a pouco foi destruindo de nós para plantar soja, para plantar cana, para plantar trigo, para plantar várias plantas, né? E usa bastante no nosso território, usa bastante veneno. Muita forte. Nós não estamos morrendo mais pela arma de fogo. Antes a gente morria pela arma de fogo. Mas hoje a gente está morrendo pelo veneno. Porque eles colocam na planta e nós pega, por exemplo, está passando água aqui, né? Nós tomamos um banho com essa água, pegamos água perto e as crianças pegam dor de cabeça, febre, ânsias de vômito. Então, mesmo assim, nós somos um indígena do Brasil que nós estamos resistindo. Nós, povo Guarani Kaiowá, nós resistimos nessa luta pelo nosso território. Então, isso eu queria deixar para vocês, né? Eu espero que algum dia, vocês que estão aqui, né? Algum dia Deus, a gente fala Deus Nhanderu, Nhandeci, que faz esse, que pega esse. Eu espero que Nhandeci e Nhanderu abre o caminho para vocês ir ver aonde que nós estamos morando, do que estado que nós vivemos, né? Então isso eu quero agradecer muito a vocês, muito de coração, que você tinha mandado convite para os nossos líderes, né? Então nós que agradeço bastante. Eu espero que Nhanderu vai abençoar todos vocês aqui. Obrigado mais uma vez.
So before I translate her words, I'd like to just give some context. The Guarani are Kayawa are probably the indigenous peoples with least land in all of Brazil. Okay, so they have basically almost no territory whatsoever. They're transboundary people that are found in Paraguay, Brazil, Argentina, and even Bolivia. And so their fight for their territory is done without almost any land base. So she says, I am here. I am an indigenous woman from Mato Grosso del Sur, and this is the baraca. She's referring to her rattle, which is a powerful gift of the ancestors. And it also calls down the ancestors to be with us and to give us strength for our struggle so that we finally are respected as Guarani Kayawa. Our prayers are prayers that we live by. We live in our prayers. Without prayers, we cannot achieve our goals. Even though our ancestors are not obviously here on earth with us, when we pray and we sing and we use our baraka, the Creator and our ancestors accompany us and give us strength to fight for our land, to recover our ancestral territory, and to continue to believe in our people, the Guarani Kayawa. Because we must struggle for the recuperation of, to recover our land and our territory, because we can hear the trees calling out to us. We can hear the rivers calling out to us to come home. The land is beckoning us. The white people cut down our forests, and now there's miles and miles of soy plantation, sugarcane plantation, wheat fields. And not only did they cut down our forests and replace it with agribusiness and these vast monocultures, but they're poisoning us with their pesticides. Historically, they killed us with guns. Now they are killing us with their poison. This poison from these pesticides. When our children bathe in the river, they get sick. I was so moved to see the beautiful clean river here in Cherokee territory, but it also reminded me that back home, when our children bathe in the river, they get headaches, they vomit, they fall sick. But the indigenous peoples of Brazil are resisting, and in particular, we Guarani Kayawa are resisting. So what I want to leave you with is hope. Hope that your path is always open for you to go where you need to be, and maybe someday you can come and travel and visit us and see where we live and see how we are struggling to recover our territory. So with my heart in my hand, I thank you, and I thank the Creator, and I ask the Creator to bless each and every one of you.
Okay, Katie.
Thank you, Claire. Oki Nixokoax, my name is Katie Chavez, and
I'm traveling here from Okoto Waktai Sakum, or Money Come Together Country, or Bozeman, Montana. And I think what I'm thinking of today, just like hearing about all of this hope and just stories around old ways and ways to revitalize our Indigenous life ways. And I really think of water. Like, you know, I always come back to water as just the river spirit being something that ties all of our people together. And I've been working on this project that I want to share about. And I think when I think of the patriarchy and the different ways that it shows up in all of our communities, one of the ways that, for me, I see it is just the very real destruction, extraction of land, and the idea of imperialism and colonization that came with colonizers coming over and not willing to recognize matrilineal cultures and saying, like, where's your chief, where's the guy that we need to speak to, and kind of like all of the structures that came out of that. And one of the things that we're doing is we're working with a group of women in Bozeman, Montana, to de-develop part of our downtown. So tear down 4 historical buildings to revitalize Chokecherry Creek, which is a creek that runs through Bozeman, downtown, the city. And it's been developed over by these lands, you know, like once the fur trappers and stuff came and Bozeman was developed out, these buildings went up, and they have choked up like this creek, and it's not flowing like under the buildings. There's trash, and the water is not clean, and you know, it has microplastics, all of this stuff. So I think when I'm thinking of my children and our future generations, and just different ways that we can undo the harm that has been, you know, a direct effect of the patriarchy, I'm like, what does it look like to have conversations around de-development? Like, how can our Indigenous feminisms lead to discussions around revitalization in ways that we can use, you know, moving money in different ways, or just like trying to be inventive with some of the structures that we need to work within to do things like revitalize our land and waters and our ways. So I just wanted to share that as a story of hope. It's like, you know, we've gotten some movement around it, and we've gotten like our city planners and engineers and stuff, and it's looking like it could potentially happen. But I want to just offer that as a thing. It's like these structures that have been built, that's not what preservation is, right? Like, we can reframe narratives and go back to what really matters and what is really there to sustain ourselves and all of our communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Lem Lunch. So we're going to wrap this up, and we're going to hopefully be able to sing a song with Benishi that we're kind of putting on the spot. You ready, Benishi? Do you all know the Strong Women song? Oh, the Women Warrior song. Okay.
Warrior. Yeah, you all should come up here. They're only voluntolding me because I have a loud voice. But this song doesn't come from my people per se. It does come from Canada. As I understand, on the western side of Canada, during the Idle No More movement. So, yeah, I don't want to hold this.
Anyone else know this song? Come on, Katie. Come on, Katie. Come on. There's different versions, so just like go with Benishi, who's like taking us out. Yeah. So do you know this song? Hey, 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 Yaki-yo. So we are going to have more circles in here. We're going to have more of these conversations. They can be a pop-up conversation. It sounds like we have a lot more things to say. Tiana is just going to conclude real quickly.
I know. I don't want to get spanked by Benishi again. I just want to say thank you for everyone to what they shared today, and what's heavy on my heart. Thank you, sister. It brings it back home for me is that we're honoring our Earth Mother and all that is sacred, our water, our women, and our life givers, and our Earth Mother. And we know that attack upon our mother is an assault on Indigenous women's lives and our bodies. And this is why we face tremendous crisis, not only from Canada to here, across our borders, imaginary borders, for this violence that shows up in racialized and gender violence in the faces of our missing and our murdered Indigenous women and relatives. So we sang this song today, the Women's Warrior Song, to honor those that have gone on to the spirit world, who have been taken, those who are still missing, those who have been taken, come back to us, but we don't know what happened to them while they were gone. The high levels of trafficking and the high levels of these man camps that are happening all over our country through the patriarchal spirit that is raping our mother, that is raping our Earth Mother. And what happens to our Earth Mother happens to the Indigenous women of the earth. So we stand together in solidarity, carrying these prayers with us with every rising sun, keeping our sisters gone missing, often found murdered, at the forefront of our mind, because when we pray for them, we are restoring the matrilineal power of our sisters, of our mothers, of our daughters, of our aunties, of our unchis. So with every footstep that we take, may we be conscious that there's people that are grieving, and we're grieving as a collective community for our missing and murdered Indigenous relatives, and that we are also finding our collective healing as we come together. So I thank you for sharing the woman's song, and I'm honored to be here, and I'm grateful that we have so much to learn for the rest of this journey together the next 4 days. So metakyasin.
You've been listening to the Indigenous Environmental Network. For more information, go to ienearth.org.